My fiancée tried to embarrass me in public, so I walked away and left her stunned. I'm 32 male, and I've always been the kind of guy who avoids drama. I believe in fairness, clear communication, and mutual respect in relationships. My fiancée, let's call her F, had a different outlook. She thrived on attention, especially in social settings. At first, I thought it was just her outgoing nature, but over time, I started noticing cracks beneath the surface. This is the story of how one seemingly ordinary night exposed F's entitlement and manipulative behavior, ultimately changing everything. It started with a dinner party that F insisted we attend. She had been talking about it for weeks. Her friend, M, was hosting, and the guest list included people F wanted to impress. I wasn't particularly excited. Socializing with strangers wasn't my idea of a good time, but I wanted to support her. Besides, she assured me it would be fun. When we arrived, the atmosphere was lively, clinking glasses, laughter, and groups of people chatting. F immediately slipped into social butterfly mode, moving from one group to another. I hung back, nursing a drink and making polite small talk when necessary. Things seemed fine until dinner. The conversation at the table shifted to relationships, and F, wine glass in hand, decided it was a good time to put me on the spot. You know, she started with a laugh. I have to work so hard to keep him in line. He's so practical. Her tone was playful, but there was an edge to it that made me uncomfortable. Everyone chuckled. I forced a smile, brushing it off as harmless banter. But she didn't stop. Like, just the other day, I told him we should upgrade my engagement ring. You know, something more fitting for the kind of couple we are. And he was all, "What's wrong with the one you have?" She mimicked my voice in an exaggerated way, making everyone laugh. Can you believe that? I mean, come on, don't we deserve the best? The room erupted in laughter, and suddenly, all eyes were on me. I felt a knot in my stomach. This wasn't a private discussion. It was public humiliation. And worse, it wasn't even the full story. Weeks earlier, she had indeed brought up upgrading her ring. The one I gave her wasn't flashy, but it was beautiful, something I'd saved for months to buy. I explained to her that I wanted to focus on building our future, saving for a house, starting a family. She rolled her eyes at the time, but I never thought she'd twist the narrative like this to humiliate me. Leaning forward, I kept my voice steady. Actually, F, I think the ring is symbolic of commitment, not a price tag. But I'm sure you explained that part too, right? The room went quiet. For a moment, F's face froze, but she quickly laughed it off, waving her hand. Oh, he's so serious sometimes. Always logical. That's why I love him, though. She tried to brush it aside, but the tension at the table was palpable. I excused myself and headed to the bathroom, needing a moment to collect my thoughts. When I returned, things had escalated. F had kept the spotlight on me, joking about how I was a homebody and how she always had to drag me to events. She even made a comment about my job, saying I wasn't as ambitious as the husbands and boyfriends of her friends. That was the final straw. F, can I talk to you for a second? I said, standing up. My tone left no room for argument. She hesitated, but followed me into the hallway. What the hell are you doing? I asked. What? She said, feigning innocence. I'm just joking. Lighten up. No, I said firmly. You're not joking. You're tearing me down in front of people. Why? To make yourself look good? To get a laugh? What's the point? Her expression shifted, irritated, defensive. Oh, come on. You're being overly sensitive. That's just how I am. People love it. Well, I don't, I shot back. And I'm not going to sit there while you humiliate me to entertain your friends. She rolled her eyes, crossing her arms. You're blowing this out of proportion. Everyone knows I'm just messing around. Do they? I asked. Because it feels like you care more about impressing them than respecting me. And if that's the case, maybe we need to rethink this whole engagement. That hit a nerve. Her face turned red, and she snapped, "Oh, don't be dramatic. You're not going anywhere." That's when it hit me. She didn't think I'd leave. She thought I'd sit there, take her digs, and let her manipulate the situation because I always had. But not this time. Without another word, I walked back into the dining room, grabbed my coat, and told the host I wasn't feeling well. F followed me, hissing under her breath, "If you leave, don't bother coming back." I paused, looked her in the eye, and said, "That's entirely up to you." Then I walked out. The days that followed were chaotic. F blew up my phone with calls and texts, alternating between apologizing and accusing me of overreacting. I ignored most of them, needing time to process. Eventually, she showed up at my apartment, demanding to talk. "You're really going to throw everything away over a few jokes?" she said, her voice dripping with entitlement. "This isn't just about the jokes, F," I replied calmly. "It's about respect. You don't seem to have any for me. And honestly, I'm not sure you ever did." She scoffed. "That's ridiculous. I love you. I've put so much into this relationship. And yet," I said, "you were willing to tear me down in front of your friends for attention. That's not love. That's selfishness." She tried to argue, but I stood my ground. Eventually, she left, furious that her usual tactics weren't working. A few weeks later, I found out she was telling mutual acquaintances that I was controlling and insecure, trying to spin the narrative in her favor. What she didn't realize was that I had kept records, her texts and messages, including one where she admitted to pushing my buttons on purpose to get a reaction. When one of her friends confronted me, I calmly shared the evidence. The tide turned quickly. People saw through her facade, and her social circle began to distance themselves. Meanwhile, I focused on moving forward, grateful I had dodged a bullet. Looking back, walking away from that dinner party was one of the best decisions I've ever made. It was painful, sure, but it was also freeing. I realized I deserved someone who builds me up, not tears me down. F's entitlement and manipulation may have left her speechless that night, but for me, it was the beginning of reclaiming my self-respect. So, if you're ever in a similar situation, remember this. You're not obligated to tolerate disrespect, no matter how much you love someone. Sometimes, walking away is the strongest move you can make. If you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button. I've got plenty more to share.